All right, y'all. So what's going on? It's currently 9:12 p.m. It's the 16th of January 2026. The market's currently closed. I'm gonna be basically just going over my fault, y'all. That was a little dark, but but I'm basically gonna be going over paper trade I took today on NAS100, as well as going over a back testing session over gold. So yeah, let me show y'all what's going on. Okay, so starting off with NAS100. So first thing I like to do is identify my trend when I hop on a chart. So when I hopped on here, it was around say about like 8 o'clock, 8:30, I say, going into 9. And around that time, price was already pushing. It was already making a big push to the downside, and I missed that whole move. Um, Ideally, that's not really a time that I even intend to trade um in the future, to be honest. Even now, I don't even try to trade that. So that was a great push though to capitalize off of, but it just wasn't the time that I like to trade for real. So I missed that whole move, but as mentioned, a great trade to capitalize on. After I do identify the trend, we went ahead and marked up the previous day high and the previous day low, which are these two green trend lines right here. Notice that there was no false break nor a fair value gap at the previous day high. And speaking of false breaks and fair value gaps, that is how I trade. That's how I strategize my entries and everything. So as mentioned, I didn't see an indication at all at the previous day high. So what did I do? Move to the previous day low, and price sold off, right? And it created a false break right here at the previous day low. It's a high probability level, so that's why I have that marked up. Price tends to target old price, so especially previous day lows and previous day highs. So as mentioned, price sold off and created a false break to the downside, but ended up closing above that previous day low. Once price closed above it, I ended up taking a paper position right here. It was way bigger than this. Like I had it really marked up all the way up here to take. But considering the time and price, I should have known like price wasn't gonna move too much after. But price ended up pushing all the way up to 25, 25, 16, 25, 6, 19. Um, but yeah, that was a small profit. It was like a $50 profit, and I ended up breaking even. And once again, it was just a paper trade, but it's cool. Hypothetically speaking, it would have been like a $50 profit, as you can see. So um, that's how I caught that trade. Now we're gonna move over to gold. Now let's talk about gold, y'all. With gold, the gold for the previous day was already consolidating, and I believe, sheesh, yeah, it was really consolidating the whole day before. So I hopped on this morning, which was once again like around 8:30, going into 9, and it was consolidating, which was like right here at this yellow candle right here. So I'm like, man, I'm not even finna mess with gold today. So not even like try to assume too soon about what price was gonna do, but I seen how it was. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna just keep an eye on it. After marking up nines a little bit, I hopped back on gold, and it was just selling off, y'all. And at the beginning of the week, I had predicted price to just come back and fill this gap right here for market open. Because usually that's what happens in price when gaps are created like that, especially like this in price. It tends to come back and fill it, which eventually it will, but I just kind of expected it to push a little further down. Um, but it's cool. It damn near got there. It got it the second candle, so basically like an hour after market market opened at the beginning of the week. So all in all, I say that to say price ended up selling all the way off past this previous day low. And what I noticed was when I marked these previous day highs and lows, right, after I identified the trend, of course, as mentioned, it was a consolidating trend. But I guess you could say it was trying. Price did start to create that bearish trend since it broke structure like that. But I wouldn't even really pay attention to that too much because markets closed and price was pretty still after that move anyways. But after identifying the trend, once again marked that previous day high and low. Now, for surely, as you can see, price didn't have any false breaks or fair value gap fills on the previous day high or low. After noticing there was no indications you know, for any moves for real, I moved over to the Asian session, which is what's highlighted here in blue. I marked the Asian session higher and the Asian session low. And usually in Asian session, price tends to consolidate a lot. And when you get a lot of consolidation, especially between certain levels, specifically the Asian session high, Asian session low, that's really built up liquidity and basically gives you a better possibility of capitalizing off of a bigger move, depending, how much liquidity is built up, especially during the Asian session. So, as you can see, price continued to consolidate. Once I realized what price was doing, I scaled down to the 15-minute time frame. And what did price do, y'all? Price created a false break at the Asian session high. What did it do? Sold off. It sold off at 9:15 to be exact. That would have been some pretty profit, especially if I got out right here. But that's neither here nor there. Definitely don't like to dwell too much on, a L or a trade that I didn't take or I wasn't present to take. I just love to actually identify what I could have caught, and this is just gonna benefit me, in the long run when it comes to catching trades like this in the future. So as mentioned, that was a pretty move, a big move right there. And yeah, all you gotta do is just learn from it for real. And one more thing, y'all. So I forgot to go over this before I moved on, but to add a small confirmation of this entry I took for NAS100, price did trade into a fair value gap, which was right here. I'm gonna try to make that a different color so y'all could see it, but it traded into this fair value gap, and I don't really like to base my entries off of like price that was that far back. But I mean, if you do want to consider that as just something to seal off your entry, you could use that. So as mentioned, price ran this previous day low, made a false break, just to add an extra confirmation that fair value gap in price right there. So that was just something to add in there. But that's going to consist of this back testing session and the trade recap, y'all. All right, y'all. So that's basically going to consist of the entire video, y'all. I went and recapped over my paper trade for NAS100 as well as back testing gold for price action today. So as mentioned, the market is closed for the weekend, so I'll basically just be back testing price action over the past week, just so I could, get ready for the upcoming week. I also didn't take a whole lot of trades this week, so I wasn't that present on the market either. So I'll definitely be seeing what I could have caught in the market. Like I said, just to better prepare me for the upcoming week. Yeah, that's really it, y'all.